My name is Maria Rossi. I'm 58 years old, and for most of my life, I've lived in the same two-bedroom walk-up above my alteration shop on 86th Street in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. The building smells like garlic from the restaurant downstairs and motor oil from the garage next door. My hands carry the scent of steam irons, wool, and the faint metallic tang of sewing machine oil. These hands raised my son, Anthony, Tony, alone after his father walked out when Tony was 6, chasing some dream of making it big in Vegas that never materialized. I never saw a dime of child support, but I never asked. I just sewed. I learned the trade from my nonna back in Naples before we came over in '68. She taught me that fabric doesn't lie. Silk whispers secrets. Cotton holds grudges. Satin forgives nothing. I built my little shop, Rossi's Alterations and Bridal, one hem at a time. Prom dresses for girls from Dyker Heights, first communion veils for the church ladies on 18th Avenue, wedding gowns for families who could afford to buy new but wanted the fit to feel like destiny. I worked nights when Tony was little, pinning muslin while he slept on the couch in the back room, waking up to find pins stuck in his cheek from rolling too close. He'd laugh and say, "Mama, you're turning me into a pincushion." I'd kiss his forehead and tell him, better a pincushion than a hungry boy. Tony was a good kid, smart, serious. He watched me measure brides who cried because the dress was perfect, and he saw how I listened when they whispered about money troubles or cheating husbands. People tell you everything if you stay quiet and hold the tape straight, I'd say. He nodded like he was memorizing it for later. He played stickball in the street, helped me carry bolts of fabric up the stairs, and every Sunday brought me cannoli from Court Pastry. When he got into NYU on a partial scholarship, I cried in the bathroom so he wouldn't see. I took extra jobs, hemming suits for Wall Street guys who never tipped, letting out waistbands for cops who ate too many donuts. I'd paid the rest of his tuition in cash, envelope after envelope, handed to the bursar like I was paying off a debt to God. He graduated with a finance degree, landed a job at a hedge fund in Midtown. First paycheck, he bought me a new Singer sewing machine, the kind with the computer screen. I still use my old Bernina most days. The Singer sits in the corner like a trophy. He started coming home less. First it was busy season, then client dinners, then weekends in the Hamptons with friends from work. I didn't complain. I was proud. My boy was climbing. Then he met Victoria Harrington. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, blonde, educated at Spence and Princeton, spoke in that soft, moneyed way, where every sentence sounded like it cost something. Tony brought her to Bensonhurst for dinner 6 months into dating. She wore a cream cashmere sweater and pearls, smiled politely at my sauce, said it was so authentic. I caught her glancing at the plastic on the couch covers, the faded Virgin Mary statue on the shelf. Tony held her hand under the table like she might float away. "Mama, she's special," he said later, washing dishes while I dried. "Her family's old money, real old. They have a place in East Hampton. Her dad's on the board at Morgan Stanley." I nodded. "As long as she's good to you, Tony, that's all Mama cares about." Victoria was polite, always polite, but polite like a closed door. 3 months later, they were engaged. Tony called me from the Hamptons. "We're doing it next summer, Mama. Big wedding. You'll love it." I asked if he needed help with my dress. He laughed. "Victoria's mom already booked a designer in the city, but you can come to the fittings if you want." I wanted. The first time I met Eleanor Harrington, Victoria's mother, was at a brunch in Southampton. The house was glass and white stone, ocean views from every room. Eleanor greeted me in linen slacks and a silk blouse, air-kissed both cheeks without touching. "Maria, how lovely. Tony speaks so highly of you." She said my name like she was tasting it for the first time and wasn't sure she liked the flavor. We sat on the veranda, mimosas, fruit plates arranged like art. Eleanor talked about the wedding, St. Andrew's Dune Church, then reception at their club. Nothing ostentatious, she said, just elegant, timeless. She looked at me. You'll be seated with the family, of course. We want you comfortable. I smiled. Thank you. I just want to see my boy happy. Victoria squeezed Tony's hand. He will be. We're so excited. But as the months went on, the invitations never came for me. Not to the bridal shower in the city, not to the tasting at the club. Tony said, "It's all girls, Mama. You'd be bored." I nodded. I sewed my own dress anyway, a simple navy silk sheath with cap sleeves and hand-stitched pearls along the neckline. I used the last of the Italian dupioni I'd saved for something special. It fit like armor. Rehearsal dinner was at the club. I drove out in my old Camry, parked in the lot with the Porsches and Range Rovers. Inside, crystal chandeliers, waiters in black tie. Tony hugged me tight. "You look beautiful, Mama." Victoria kissed my cheek. "So nice to see you." Eleanor smiled thinly. "Maria, you made it." I was seated at a side table with distant cousins and a few business associates. Tony sat with Victoria and her parents at the head. Speeches were made, toasts. No one mentioned me. I smiled through it all, hands folded in my lap so no one would see them shake. The wedding day arrived like a storm I'd seen coming for miles. St. Andrew's was packed, orchids everywhere, string quartet playing pachelbel. I sat in the third row on the groom's side, alone. Tony looked handsome in his tux. Victoria was breathtaking in ivory lace, veil trailing like seafoam. When they said their vows, Tony's voice cracked on forever. I cried quietly into my handkerchief. Reception was on the lawn of the Harrington estate. Tents, fairy lights, an ocean breeze. Tables seated 10. I was placed at table 12, near the bar, with some college friends of Victoria's and an elderly aunt who kept asking if I was the help. Dinner started. Lobster, filet, wines I couldn't pronounce. Speeches again. Victoria's father talked about legacy. Eleanor stood, glass raised. "To our children, may they build a life as beautiful as the one we've given them, and to new beginnings without old baggage." She looked right at me when she said it. A few people laughed uncomfortably. Tony looked down at his plate. Then the dancing. Tony and Victoria's first dance. Everyone watched. I stood off to the side, clapping softly. Eleanor approached me with a plate of something. Crab cakes, maybe. "Maria, try these. They're divine." Before I could take it, her hand slipped. The entire plate, sauce, cake, garnish, tumbled onto my dress. Navy silk soaked through in seconds. Ruined. The pearls darkened. The tent went quiet. Eleanor gasped theatrically. "Oh my God, how clumsy of me. I'm so sorry." Her eyes said otherwise. Satisfied. Triumphant. Tony turned, saw me standing there, dripping. He walked over slowly, looked at the mess, looked at his new mother-in-law, looked at me. Then he said, quiet but clear, "Mama, maybe you should go clean up. There's a bathroom in the house." No, "Are you okay?" No, "What happened?" No defense. I felt the ground tilt, the same feeling I had when his father left. Shock first, then the slow burn of understanding. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I took the linen napkin from my clutch, the one I'd embroidered with his initials when he was 10, and wiped what I could from the silk. I straightened my back, walked past the staring guests, past the string quartet still playing softly, past the ocean that didn't care. Outside by the valet, I pulled out my phone. dialed a number I'd saved months ago after the first brunch when Eleanor asked if I still lived above the shop. 3 words. It's time. I hung up. Drove home in silence, dress sticking to my skin, salt air mixing with crab sauce. In Bensonhurst, I parked, climbed the stairs, peeled off the ruined silk and hung it in the closet like evidence. Then I showered until the water ran cold. What happens next took 6 weeks. See, while Tony was climbing ladders in Midtown, I'd been quietly climbing my own. Years of saving every extra dollar, buying small commercial spaces in Brooklyn when prices were low, 3 storefronts on 86th, 2 in Bay Ridge. I rented them out, never told anyone, not even Tony. The income paid his tuition, then sat in a trust. When he started at the hedge fund, I asked a lawyer friend from the neighborhood, old Mr. Caputo, to look into something. The firm Tony worked for leased space in a building on Madison Avenue. Guess who owned a minority stake in that building through a quiet LLC? Me. The call I made was to Mr. Caputo. It's time meant start the quiet pressure. No lawsuit, no scene, just a renegotiation of the lease terms. Higher rent, shorter term, stricter clauses on subletting. The kind of thing that makes partners sweat at board meetings. 3 weeks later, Tony called, voice tight. "Mama, there's trouble at work. The building owner is pushing back on our lease. They're talking layoffs if costs go up." I listened, said nothing at first. Then, funny how things change when the ground shifts, huh? Silence. "Mama, did you—" "I saved every penny so you could have a future, Tony, not so someone could throw crab cakes on me and you could watch." He started to apologize. I cut him off. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done carrying people who won't carry me back." I hung up. He tried calling again, texted, showed up at the shop once. I wasn't there. Nana's Bernina sat quiet on the table. I'd started teaching classes, young girls from the neighborhood, learning to sew. One of them asked why I smiled more now. "Because I finally let go of a thread that was pulling too tight," I said. Last I heard, Tony and Victoria were looking for a new apartment, smaller. The funds took a hit, nothing fatal, but enough to humble. Eleanor stopped posting photos of family weekends. Tony sends flowers sometimes. I put them in water. They die eventually. I still sew. Brides come in, nervous, hopeful. I listen, I pin. I tell them the same thing I always did. Fabric doesn't lie. Hold it straight, and it'll tell you what it needs. And every night, I sit on my balcony overlooking 86th Street, drink espresso from my old mug, the one with the crack from when Tony was 12, and watch the lights come on in the windows across the street. My hands rest in my lap, calm, no pins, no blood, just the quiet satisfaction of a woman who finally stitched her life back together. Sometimes the people we love most are the ones who cut us deepest. But threads can be rewoven, and silk is stronger than it looks.